Never miss an episode of the Final Furlong podcast. Subscribe now on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And now, here's your host, Emmet Kennedy.
Welcome to the Final Furlong Podcast and our review of Epsom 2025, a meeting dominated by Aidan O'Brien and quite frankly dominated by us as well. Almost everything we told you, that's why you watch and listen to the Final Furlong Podcast. And a man who told you weeks and weeks and weeks ago that Lambourn was going to win the Derby makes his glorious return to the show. Adam Mills, how did the Cuban cigars taste after that plan came together?
Yeah, they tasted pretty good. I should apologise to Geraint, who put the comment on YouTube about Adam Mills is a fool. What does he know? Well, even a blind squirrel finds the occasional acorn, but this was, it was nice to watch because actually halfway down the hill it was obvious he was going to win. So it wasn't one of those races where you're thinking, please hang on. It was just thinking, we'll keep going, lads. Love it.
Yeah.
Nice one.
It's extraordinary to see him basically do Serpentine 2.0, but in a better version of the Derby, I'd like to think anyway. I don't think he's a horse that's going to be gelded anytime going forward. And it was a brilliant weekend for George Gorman as well. Winners left, right and centre, including a 25-1 winner of one of the dashes. I can't quite remember which one because the gamble imploded. Everybody was following you in blindly, George. But again, you got to love it when a plan comes together.
Oh, God, yeah. No, she's obviously a very nice horse going forward. Hopefully make the step up to more sort of listed group company like that she was competing in last year. But didn't look likely for most of the way. She almost looks like she'd get further. So, but yeah, no, like it when a plan comes together. And we've got to point out from the two... certainly from the first dash, that draw bias is a thing of the past, really, isn't it? Even in the second dash, you had 7, 18, 14, 5, 2, 17. The draw bias is sort of gone. I think you don't want to be drawn in the middle, particularly, but you want to be one side or the other. But yeah, no, a great weekend. And obviously following Adam in on the Derby winner as well. Like you said, you're sort of, from almost turning in, you were sort of looking at the each way plays and seeing where they were going to finish. You go, he's got this one.
Yeah.
But weekend, very enjoyable.
And Tricia decided to add in the 66-1 dark horse that could shock them all, which was Tennessee Stud that we were talking about, as part of the headline for that week's episode. So it was really good that Tennessee Stud then did plough on to be third. It was a very, very enjoyable one. We had 4 races on TalkSport 2 on the Friday, all 4 winners put up. Yeah, we were with Aidan O'Brien for the domination. And also the two boys, Charlie and Ryan, yet again, doing you a massive favour on the Final Furlong Podcast. They could not have been more bullish that journalism was going to win the Preakness. They were right. They could not have been more bullish that Sovereignty was going to win the Belmont. And again, they were right. So if you did what a number of people DM'd us to say, did multiple combination bets, including all going on to Sovereignty, then happy days. The gravy will flow. So the boys will be back. I'm going to join them on their shows this week. Also, Howard Kravitz, American show to the Triple H Racing Podcast. I'm looking forward to going back on that. Looking ahead to Royal Ascot. We're doing our own Royal Ascot specials, obviously. So if you haven't already liked the Final Furlong Podcast, please do so now. If you haven't subscribed to us, please hit the subscribe button now. It's a massive help to us. Independent show, telling you what we really think, and we love your insight as well. So comment below if you followed us in this weekend, if you're with us or not. That's enough of the pats on the back. The Derby was run in honour of his late great Highness the Aga Khan this year. It goes to Lambourn, obviously tipped up by Adam and by George. It was the largest field since 2017 for the race. How good the race was, I guess, is going to be a question that, well, really only the two boys can answer in terms of profile. We'll talk more about that in a second. Pace held up all week at Epsom, Adam, and Wayne came this close to pulling it off in the Oaks on Whirl, which we'll talk about in a little bit. He replicated those tactics. Aidan had been saying that they're going to go forward, and it was just a beautiful, beautiful ride on a horse by a Derby winner who himself was by the great Galileo and out of an Oaks winner, so he was bred for the job. The only question was, did he have the class for it? And he proved on the day that he did.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Wayne Lordan essentially rode the same race twice. The difference just was that on the Saturday, he was on the slightly better horse, gunned it from the start. But you're right what you say, there's a massive track bias. On the Friday, all 7 winners either led or tracked the leader, so they're within 2 lengths coming down the hill. And then on the Saturday, the race that we had to sort of compare to our spiritual basically made all. So you're in a track that before the rain came was massively favouring that kind of ride. But what Wayne Lordan did well was to realise, right, I have to lead. I absolutely have to. I'm not going to drop in. You watch him from the start. He's like full pelt. We are going. It was like watching an American 5 furlong dirt sprint. It was just head down. I'm going to get in the drive. I'm going to get myself to the front. But then what he does brilliantly is he gets to the 7 furlong pole in both races and he dabs on the brakes, stacks them up behind him, 2 furlongs where he's just easing off a little and then he can kick off a Tattenham corner. Easily the best horse in the race. 19 runners below average Derby would be my assessment of those in behind. I think there's a lot you can forgive because of the track bias, the scrimmaging for position, but I also don't necessarily think there's a sort of world-beating 10 furlong Derby stallion of the future in this field. Lambourn's very good, got them all at it. Slowest winning time since Harzand in 2016, finishing speed of 107% that favoured a front runner. I don't know, this wasn't that great, I don't think. And I think in 20 years' time, people won't go, do you remember when Lambourn won the 2025 Derby?
Yeah, because you started criticising, I said I better put on my Coolmore shill cap.
Sorry. Well, I wasn't taking the Aidan O'Brien, he's the best Derby winner I've ever trained line. My mistake, but I'm not into that.
You don't think he's going to drop back for the July Cup, no?
No, I don't think so. I think Lambourn is certainty to win the Irish Derby, probably at a very short price, and then they may as well have a crack at the Arc, and they not. I mean, he looks the perfect type that if he got that low draw at Paris Longchamp, just throw him out in front of that, because that track massively favours horses that stay and have got enough early speed to get in position. It's not impossible to think that he could end up in the Arc. He might be. I think he's a good horse. But I think those in behind, you just have to kind of put lines through them for different reasons. Delacroix doesn't stay, didn't get the right trip. The line in winter, I mean, I hadn't picked up on this, but Stuart Williams was on Luck on Sunday yesterday, and he said, well, I looked at the line in winter in the paddock, and he's covered in the scars of ringworm. So he's obviously had a ringworm infection over the spring. That's why he's not running to form. It would have really hit his immune system. When he's back to himself, completely forgive that horse. So that might explain a lot of what's happened, because kind of the line in winter spent most of the winter as the more likely winner of this race, and it hasn't quite worked for him. There's lots of really nice stories from the placed horses, really good run from Tennessee Stud. I thought New Ground ran an absolutely massive race for the Devon Yard, probably the career best by 15 pounds almost. He's clearly suited by it. But I'd also take the view, the fact that New Ground, who is a nice horse, but I know for a fact he's a bit of a plodder, the fact that New Ground got that close and was able to make up ground from the rear, he's either found a stone and a half of improvement for the mile and a half trip, or those in front of him weren't that great.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things to unpack there in terms of what you said. Yeah. One, obviously the pace held up all weekend. It's a great ride from Wayne Lordan. If you're going to say it's a great ride, that normally means it's not necessarily you think that the best horse won. That doesn't always translate. Sometimes the best horse won with the best ride. I think he was the most ideally suited to this race, given the way things panned out. I think being the clerk of the course is an absolute nightmare of a job. You can never please everybody. Whether or not they should have watered as much as they did during the week, that's maybe a debate for another day. Maybe we'll have that debate on this show. I'm not entirely certain. But British racing itself seems to have gotten into this habit of, we don't want good to firm anymore. And so they're going for good ground, that if you get the rain, you're not going to get it. But I also thought Stuart Williams eloquently explained the reasons as to why it's so difficult to actually maintain the track properly at Epsom. Given the fact that the rain fell, the Guineas winner comes out, don't think he would have stayed anyway, particularly on that ground. It meant that the soft ground stamina horses have come to the fore, George. And Adam's point about Lambourn and the Irish Derby, yeah, not only is he going to be ideally suited to it, he should love the circuit at the Curragh. He should love that galloping track. But who's going to beat him? Who's the threat to him? None of that lot in behind are a threat to him. Like, unless something like Stanhope Gardens or Pride of Arras are able to find another leg and massively improve, I don't see how any of those horses are a threat to him. So Aidan didn't run Swagman. He didn't run Puppet Master or Stay True. He didn't run the other winner from Chester. So there's three, basically, four that could come from the Ballydoyle yard that might be a threat to him. But maybe if Tennessee Stud is given a more prominent ride, maybe he could step forward. But I don't see anything else that can threaten this fella.
Yeah, I wouldn't be as dismissive of some of the beaten horses as that. Just bear in mind it is Epsom. Like, it is. And if you're not, I know it was a little softer on this occasion, but like, it'd be say, like you mentioned Stanhope Gardens, I thought he handled the track particularly well, but had absolutely no run out of stall too. Like, he got shuffled. He'd already further back than he wanted to be, and then this new ground sort of caused havoc on the outside. Delacroix got shuffled back, caused Stanhope Gardens to be even further back. I think he had one horse behind him at one point, Stanhope Gardens. He's run a hell of a race. And like you would be inclined watching the closing stages, go, oh well, he's handled the track and he's not got there, but he's come from a long way back. Take Adam's point about new ground, but I can't have it that horse could misbehave as exceptionally as it did at every single point in the build up to that race. Get such a bad run, pull so hard, and run on that. It's got to have some ability. I'd almost be improved to Stone. Because how can it do so much wrong and finish that close in a derby? Like, it obviously had, again, a horse that handled the track particularly well, perhaps didn't handle the occasion that well. I wonder, with another year under his belt, if he'd be a Coronation type horse, because I know he didn't handle the day, but Jesus, the way he's run a career best on that track, you'd love to take him back there again. And if he blows his lid again, then maybe you start thinking about something else. But it's too good a run to ignore for me. As regards to the ground, it's worth mentioning, like, we were all, like, I think I did a lot of my stuff on this podcast on the basis of basically soft ground, like not good soft. And the writing was on the wall very early, with Sparks Fly finishing third and Ice Max finishing second. Like, it always pays to have a couple of those horses in mind. We go, if that runs a race, we need to have a rethink, sort of thing. And I think a lot of punters didn't adjust on the day, which is where they maybe struggled a bit. But yeah, those are my two main ones to take out of it that people haven't mentioned: New Ground and Stanhope Gardens. Tennessee Stud is well found. Like, he suffered a bit from New Ground. He got stuck in the same shuffle back, but got a golden run up the inner late. Like, he's come from a long way back, but he's not had to come round anyone. He's managed to get down onto the rail and not had to worry about the camber. He's done very well to get to where he did from where he was, but he did have a much better run than, say, New Ground or Stanhope Gardens, who had to do it up the middle of the track, contending with the camber without a rail to help them. So, his horse I'd take going forward, but I was really, really taken with Stanhope Gardens. I think he's run a hell of a race from where he was, and he even got short of room up the straight itself and managed to sort of force his way through. I think that could be a really nice horse to take forward as the season goes on. There's a Group 1 winner waiting to happen as a 3-year-old.
He kind of reminded me a little bit of White Birch.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. And it'd be one that gets lost, because he did, like the final 110 yards, he did stop a little bit, or he certainly appeared to stop maybe as New Ground and Tennessee Stud ran. But I think he's going to be my main one to take from the race, to be honest. Like, obviously, the winner is what the winner is, but you can't be giving up on Delacroix off the basis of that either. Like, I've seen all the excuses. Where is it? Colt suffered interference at the top of the hill, causing him to become unbalanced and lose his position, which was noted. He was never going.
Yeah.
He never went a yard. It was far too bad to be true. And I'm
trying to
work out.
Sorry to cut across you. What were we saying beforehand? Dubawi's and Epsom.
Yeah, I think it's just the fact he's just a big, heavy horse. So he struggles to go uphill and he struggles to go downhill, which I wouldn't be mad about him for the Eclipse either.
No.
If you've ridden around Sandown on the flat, it's even steeper up that hill than it seems to be over jumps. Like, it is a wall that you run up at Sandown. I wouldn't be keen on him there. I'd always be more keen on him at Ascot, like a King George or something maybe, but I don't know if they're going to try the trip again. I'm desperately trying to think of something mile 2 flat that might suit him. If he was mine, I'd be trying mile 4 again on a flatter track.
Well, he looked like a well-balanced horse going into the race. Like, that would be one of the comments you'd make from his 2 performances at Leopardstown and his runs as a juvenile.
Yeah.
But
this is why I'm not dying to write Ascot off, because there's a lot of climbing involved, but it's a very even track. You're not going up and then down and up and down. Like, I'd nearly give him a chance if he was a big price for like a King George or something, but I'm not sure they'll go that way. I think he could be even like a Breeders' Cup horse, maybe mile 2 on a flat track. I don't, but I certainly won't write him off. I'll leave it to Aidan what to do with him because he's the man. But
be more like
do not write him off on that.
Be more like a mile 3.5 though, wouldn't it? And I just wonder,
Yeah.
Adam, like this is off the top of my head. It's now 23 years since Aidan O'Brien has won the Derby with the horse from those Leopardstown trials. It was all started off so beautifully with Galileo and High Chaparral, and as Kieran Fallon came in and his influence then had its sway on Aidan, he learned the value of the Chester Derby trials. And it just seems to me now it's about the Guineas, Chester, Lingfield, then maybe the Dante. And that's really that's your Aidan doesn't really like that trial because it's too close to the Derby. Leopardstown has just fallen down the pecking order, and the proof is there. He's won 9 Derbies since, and none of them have come from Leopardstown. And I just wonder with Delacroix, is this going to be Stone Age Bolshoi Ballet 2.0? It's like he looked good, but actually when he beat Lambourn, it was Lambourn's seasonal debut. He didn't like that trip. He needed to go up. Lambourn's just the better horse.
The Bolshoi Ballet is a bit below the belt. I mean, he only had one bad run, the poor lad. You're straight like you're in the Bolshoi Ballet camp.
They sent him off favourite for a Derby.
Come on, Aidan, jump him. See if he jumps a hurdle. What's next? No, I do. I take your point. I think the problem with the way that Leopardstown trial works, the form, it's quite early in the season. You've got to work out what's ready, what's not. And as you saw, when Delacroix won the Ballysacks and he beats Lambourn, and he beats Lambourn quite comfortably, but actually Lambourn's probably only 80% fit and over the wrong trip. The Chester race is good if you want to educate a front runner. Because at Chester, you have to be quite prominent. You've got to have that early speed. You've got to hold the position, which is what you kind of... I think that's why it works out. I mean, the Lingfield trials, I don't really think you can use those, especially not this year. I thought they were particularly weak races.
Yeah.
Some people might say that the second in that trial maybe could have won if he tried. But it's kind of like it's just a difficult way of looking at Aidan's plans this year. What's been noticed in the last couple of years is Aidan's kind of taken the view, not so worried about the English Guineas. And I don't know whether that's just sort of deliberate or whether it's just the way the horses have come out of the winter, but it's not the be-all and end-all. But ultimately, they've still won the Derby, so I don't think they're overly particularly bothered. They've still won it. I think both Delacroix and the Lion in Winter will not run at 12 furlongs again.
Yeah.
I think they're 10, and I'd imagine there's a kind of view of we'll train them both as 10 furlong horses. One of them will go to the Juvenile International at York, and if they win that, they'll go to the Irish Champion Stakes. The other one will probably have a slightly softer target at home, and then we've got a backup for the Irish Champion Stakes. There are plenty of options in there. And Lambourn is the one now that you think, okay, well, we'll build the Irish Derby around him, and then we'll see what we've got. So you mentioned, is there anything to beat Lambourn? The only thing that sort of caught my eye would be whether the Gosdens would bring Detain across to the Curragh. I just felt Shanti, everything happened a bit quick for him in the straight. And he still ran a really good race in the Prix de Jockey Club, but he's a Wootton Bassett. It'll be a bit left field for John Gosden to try something like that. But I did think he was sort of half interesting as kind of, he might appreciate the Curragh a bit more, particularly if he got something to sit behind, because effectively Lambourn, we all know now what they're going to do. Wherever he goes, it'll be gun him out in front. But it's not, whilst we're only in June, I feel like the middle distance horses this year are a little bit below the last year's. And I think if you think about what City of Troy and Auguste Rodin have done to win the Derby recently, I don't think anyone's under any illusions that Lambourn is as good as them. Not yet, anyway.
No, Lambourn's not going to be dropping back to 10 furlongs for the Eclipse. He's going to, if anything, he'll go up and trip. So Irish Derby next. He might, by the way, George could be right. He might be vulnerable against Stanhope Gardens if that horse is given a more prominent position. Again, I'll reiterate. I think Tennessee Stud as a horse will take a big step forward. And if he's given a more prominent ride, I don't think Lambourn's unbeatable. You know, he sets a pretty decent standard, and maybe he will be lining up in the Arc as a leading contender. But the first thing Aidan said was, yeah, we'll aim him at the St. Leger. Perhaps with the benefit of hindsight, maybe he's talked a little bit more to Wayne, maybe he's looked at the race back again, maybe he now just thinks, actually, we've got a proper one here who's just going to crush this middle distance lot. We could go win whatever we want with them. But you have to remember they also have Camille Pizarro. And right now, he's a French Classic winner and a Group 1 winning 2-year-old. You're going to want to win an open company grade Group 1 with him, so he's probably going to head for the Eclipse as the number one. And the rest of them are just going to have to fiddle in behind or be sorted out behind. It's a big question mark about Delacroix. He didn't run his race. No question about it. He can take a big step forward from that. The line in winter. The other thing about both of these horses is, and this is sort of unusual in terms of how Aidan's horses would normally run in the Derby, the vast majority of his big guns are Group 1 winning 2-year-olds. And so you have to campaign them as such. You can't really drop back to a Group 3 because you've got to carry a penalty. And in any case, you're a Group 1 horse, you have to go win that. They don't have to do that with the line in winter. They can drop him back to a Group 3 in Ireland. They could find a nice Group 2 somewhere in the UK, France. Very same with Delacroix.
He could end up back over a mile line in winter very easily.
I'm pretty sure Aidan said that. I'm pretty sure that Juddmont's new number one rider. Congratulations, Colin Keane. That's a great appointment. And don't know what it means for his association with Ger Lyons going forward, but it's an incredible opportunity for him. And I know he'll do brilliantly. So well done to Colin Keane, who will now be number one rider to Juddmont in Europe going forward. And congratulations to him. We all wish him well. But he was saying to Aidan, mile, dropping back to a mile. And to be fair, that's exactly which Paige Fuller was saying, that this is a horse that strides like a miler. You can't just knock that out of a racehorse in the terms of one race. So look, they gave him the chance. They've given him the opportunity to go. He got trapped out wide. He gets caught behind. The race doesn't really go to plan. Obviously, the ringworm that Stuart Williams was making reference to as well means this is a horse who can improve. But in my head, I was thinking they're going to work backwards from the Juddmonte International. I feel like that is what they're doing. And it's just a matter of which of the two. Is it going to be Delacroix or him gets there? Who makes the progression?
I back Delacroix in the Juddmonte International. If he's a price that reflects what happened to him in the Derby, I back him in the International.
Let me ask you this question: who would you rather, Delacroix or Camille Pizarro?
There's a question and a half in it. I don't think they'll run both, so I don't think it matters.
I'd take Camille Pizarro right now.
Yeah.
I think they were just running him over the wrong trip last year. Very, very unusually for Aidan. They hadn't realised, you won 7. And actually you were further.
Depends how many runners there are. If you get if you got a small field, Delacroix.
Okay.
I think Camille Pizarro needs a well-run race. Like, I think if you got a See the Stars Juddmonte International, I think Delacroix would absolutely hose up.
As long as there's no See the Stars in the yeah, I know what you mean. If it's a Paddington small field race, he'll take an awful lot of catching. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Shout out to the Lazy Griff connections. What a run. Christophe Simeon. Perfection. Loved his attitude in the parading after Coolmore. That guy's a legend. He's one of my favourite jockeys, and Lazy Griff has been given a fantastic ride. Would the German Derby just be his for the taking if he lines up at him?
No. That's everyone takes his assumption the German Derby must be weak because I've never heard of it. That's a deep race. It's a deep
Palladium
race.
won it.
Somehow. Has anyone actually seen the replay to confirm he won it? Or has he just put it on his CV and no one's questioned it? No, and also it's not. It would be wrong to assume that German Group 1 Derby is a weak race. It's not. There are some very talented 3-year-old colts. There's a horse called Aikido for Henk Grue that's kind of on my radar if they were to supplement him. There's quite a bit of depth. I mean, his run in the Epsom Derby would be enough to make me think he'd be competitive in a wouldn't be he shouldn't be a 4 to 5 shot. He's much more likely to be one of 5 or 6 with a real chance.
It should be mentioned, Tennessee Stud also has an entry in the German Derby as well. And you could argue that if they both had the same run round, Tennessee Stud would have beaten Lazy Griff at Epsom. Lazy Griff's benefited hugely from being handy off Lambourn's gallop.
Yeah.
And Tennessee Stud's overcome quite a lot to finish bang next to him. No, I don't think Tennessee Stud will go there in Ireland. But
no, I think
they'll.
Yeah, I'd imagine they'll go for the Curragh, and I think they'll be pretty confident that they can at least bridge the gap on Lambourn. Now, Lambourn will have the assistance of Ryan Moore at the Curragh. Wayne is obviously a fantastic jockey, but Aidan O'Brien, Ryan Moore at the Curragh, they tend to be pretty unbeatable. But if he's given a more prominent ride, Tennessee Stud can definitely ask him a bigger question at least. But whatever they decide to do with those horses, it's going to be interesting to see. That was an 11th Derby for Aidan O'Brien. The day before, it was an 11th Oaks for him. Wayne Lordan came this close to winning the race, but it was Ryan Moore who ends up getting up on Minnie Hauk. And fair play to Chester. There are 2 big trial winners both go and conquer Epsom. Minnie Hauk had been obviously the number one, Adam, but Aidan O'Brien was very, very clear that Giselle would take a step forward. She didn't really. World had been talked about for the French Oaks. She gets thrown into this race, proves she stayed and was given a superb ride in defeat. But Minnie Hauk just had that little bit too much, and they've pulled clear of a 1,000 guineas winner who in the end probably didn't stay.
Yeah, possibly. Visually, this looks quite strong because of the way World goes from the start. But actually, over the first 2 furlongs, she's 1.8 seconds slower than Lambourn. So she's about 10 lengths behind Lambourn at the end of the second furlong, despite the fact she's in front. But again, this is another race, just genius from Wayne Lorden, who'd obviously worked out. He'd actually probably watched the earlier races, which not all the jockeys appeared to do. But he got to that 7 furlong pole, and then he went, right, dab on the brakes. And you can see, as they start to head down the hill, the field behind Whirl and Minnie Hauk, concertinas up. And you think, oh, maybe the pace is slowing. And then suddenly at the bottom of the bend, it's bang, here we go, inject some pace, and the front two just pull clear. The finishing speed of 110%, if Desert Flower, I'm not sure she didn't stay. I just think she didn't handle the track at all. And I think that's the only possible excuse, because they went relatively slowly. It's not like this was an end-to-end gallop in a track record time. They went relatively slowly, and then it became a bit of a sprint finish. Well, that should surely suit a 1,000 guineas winner. And it didn't. I just think the track got to her. She could never really seem to get her feet right, because actually then you watch at the end and you think, oh, she's going to fall out the back of the telly. She keeps on into third place. She's not stopped. I just think she just couldn't run her race. And I think probably the way she ran had a massive influence on the decision as to whether or not to run Ruling Court on the Saturday. Once we've said all that, the 2 best fillies in the race finished 1-2. They've pulled nicely clear. Minnie Hauk is just about better than Whirl. Probably there's half a length between them. That's probably about where they are on ratings. There was a lot of talk in the post-race interview of like, she's unexposed and she's improving and she might be one of Aidan's best fillies. I think she's very good. I wouldn't put her in the same bracket as Minding or anything of that nature that he's won the Oaks with. Yeah, I don't at that level yet, but she's improving. The front 2, though, brilliant Ballydoyle tactics, stacked them up, then they kicked, and those 2 have pulled well clear. I'm not convinced that anything in behind can be trusted either way. I don't think you can necessarily say the track didn't suit them all or the race didn't suit, forgive that run, because some of them, I think, didn't appear to get anywhere. And the others, I just think there's an assumption with the Oaks that it must be an absolute top-class race. And I think some of those in behind were chancing their arm in what they saw was a small field and have come up well short, of which Giselle would certainly be one of them.
Yeah, I got Giselle badly wrong. I initially thought she was going to end up being the number 1. She ends up being the 3rd string. Colin Keane was riding the 3rd pick horses. Wayne was obviously on the number 2, and that's been proven by how the results have borne out. World got really close. Lambourn ends up winning. Brief shout out to Ollie Sangster. Back in 2019, he forked out $525,000 for the Juddmonte, can't call her a cast-off because they sold her for a fortune, multilingual, and he ends up breeding an Oaks winner in Minnie Hauk, who Coolmore paid €1,850,000 for. They've got some of the best mares in the world, so for them to go out into the market and pay that money for a horse who then goes and wins the Oaks with a beautiful Juddmonte pedigree, given that she's by Frankel, there's an awful lot to like about her. And I don't doubt maybe we should be tempering enthusiasm, George, to a certain extent. The time was 2.78 seconds slower than the Coronation Cup. But Jan Brueghel's a really good horse, and obviously Calandagan is too. More on them to come. She's only had 4 starts. She's won 3 of them, including now a classic. And it's a gutsy performance from her. She'll take a lot of beating at the Curragh. For all that Wayne Lorden is probably relishing the prospect of riding World from the front again.
Yeah. Should be said. Beautiful Juddmonte pedigree, Minnie Hauk. But of course, Frankel is by
Galileo.
So
all comes back to Coolmore, baby.
2 sons of Galileo breeding the winners of the 2 classics, and then the other Group 1 of the weekend was won by a Galileo.
Yeah.
Really good weekend for them. I think at this point Galileo's in so many pedigrees they can't help but win, can they? Coolmore. But the only thing that gave me a little bit of concern about the quality of the race was that Minnie Hauk, I don't think, actually handled the track particularly well. Like, she was still in a bit of a... Like, I think Ryan only picked up his stick 3 times, and it was mostly because he was afraid she was going to hang down the camber she did bump well once. I think he was worried that if he bumped her 2 or 3 times, he might lose it in the stewards. Like he was at pains to keep her straight. And the fact that she's not handled the track and won it always makes you a little bit concerned about how good the others are. I think World's a lovely horse. Probably won't be asked to, but would get further. I was a little more positive about some of the men behind. Yeah, Desert Flower didn't stay. The O'Brien horse definitely didn't stay. I take Adam's point about Desert Flower probably didn't handle the track more than didn't stay. I was a bit more positive about Giselle. Like, I don't think she got particularly good run round. She definitely got short of room up the straight. And until the final 110 yards, she doesn't get any further away from Minnie Hauk and Whirl. Like right up until just before the line. I think she's probably 5 lengths behind them all the way up the straight, and then just like sort of just stops close home. Revoir didn't handle the track at all and somehow made up a load of ground. It fell down the hill, and you'd be inclined to think, oh, she's made up 10 lengths on the field. Oh, she must have handled the track. She tripped over about 3 times down the hill. How she didn't come down at one point, I don't know. I think that could be a properly nice horse on was it her 3rd career start?
I have a question.
What's that?
Why did You Got To Me drift out to 40s, Revoir drift out to 22s, Pride of Aris
I hadn't seen the 22s.
You Got To Me gets beaten 28 lengths, Revoir gets beaten 11.5 lengths, Pride of Aris gets... That Dante form is absolute stink. Absolutely rank. The Lion in Winter didn't run his race. Neither the Wimbledon Hawkeye. You can have the rest of them. What price is Pride of Aris for the Triumph Hurdle lecture? Valvano got beaten 90 lengths.
That was they changed the tactics though on Valvano, didn't they?
90 lengths. He didn't get beaten 9. He got beaten 90 lengths.
Having said that, obviously our horse was handy the whole way and won it. So
fair play.
If you're making the running and get beaten 90 lengths in a race where the winner sat 2nd or 3rd the whole way, is probably I'm
a big fan of Rafe Beckett. That was appalling stuff. Like you just you can't take that literally. Like there's no way the $4.5 million purchase You Got To Me has been beaten that far on her seasonal debut, and that's a run on merit. Like those horses have not run for whatever reason. There's something wrong.
Well, Valvano, I heard Hector Crouch being interviewed about him. They're asking him, like, what's the best of your non-classic rides, I think it was. And he said, they were read out to him, and obviously none of them really took his fancy, but Valvano was favourite. So he said, let's go with Valvano, was the phrasing used.
Yeah.
And I think the entire interview well, he's a good workhorse. There was always a little undertow. I just think it's an absolute hound.
Yeah, he's big.
just knowing Hector like I did, the inflection of just everything was like, this thing's a complete wrong. And basically,
I have a note on my tracker.
Probably should be a group horse.
I have a note on my tracker. It is his mother won on Good to Firm. He looks a smart colt in the making. He's an exciting individual. Hector Crouch at Nottingham. That was back in October 2023. He's a hound.
Even the term individual coming from Hector probably means it wasn't high on his list of favourite horses.
Yeah, let's forget it.
You could have easily said he's a nice boy, or he's a horse we're all keen on. Individual implies that whatever you want to say, you're not saying. You don't, like if your parents said you're a difficult individual or whatever, do you know what I mean? If your parents refer to you as an individual, it's never positive.
See, this is why we need you,
Your
George.
school reports, he's very individual.
We need you to decode. We need you to do the racing lingo translation for us, and that's invaluable.
I can do the Hector translate for sure.
Okay.
I haven't actually spoken to him since Epsom, but I made the point to him because he was worried about the overwatering. I said, if Sparks Fly runs any sort of race in the first, they've overdone the watering, and sure enough, it runs an absolute blinder.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's another.
It's worth mentioning. Elwatine didn't come.
Just going to say, yet another Dubawi getting bit. I don't know how those two Dubawis finished first and second in the Oaks last year. It must have been an awful running of the race, or else those two were just in a completely different league on the day. But everything, Dubawi hated Epsom. His progeny, the vast majority of them hated. And one of my favourite pundits was saying, what a load of nonsense. What a load of nonsense. This Dubawis can't handle Epsom. They can go anywhere. No, they can't. They cannot. And you have definitive proof of it now.
I think it's worth saying with Albertine, she didn't come down the hill at Newmarket either, but we were all hoping it was because it was her second run rather than because she's not balanced enough to come down the hill. And at the price, I think it was worth taking a chance on. It's not the sort of bet where you see that happen and go, oh, God, of course it did. You're like, it made sense at the time. I don't think if you backed her, you should be, self-flagellating. Like, it made sense to go at the price for a horse that finished fourth on its second start in a Guineas. It was worth taking the chance that it didn't come down the hill at Newmarket because of its experience rather than its physical makeup. Yeah,
I would agree. And I think she's probably going to be a little bit dismissed and is going to be one to keep in mind because the performance is still there for her to be able to go and build on. Although that 1,000 Guineas form is starting to become very questionable. The only horse of any interest in that race was Lake Victoria. Aidan O'Brien told you she wasn't ready, and now she's going to miss Royal Ascot, which is just an absolute, that's a gut-wrencher. Which brings me to Desert Flower. So I'm pretty certain that Aidan O'Brien is going to just win every single fillies race that he wants to, whenever he wants to. And the Ribblesdale, I have no idea who he's going to run, but he'll win it. I just need to work out who's actually going to line up. He'll win the Irish Oaks. He'll win the Yorkshire Oaks. He'll win everything. He might not win the Coronation because Lake Victoria is now out, although Exactly wouldn't be out of it. And if Miguel Barcelona decides to do another golden pony job, then that's going to put Saragana in a little bit of difficulty. But what about Desert Flower going forward? Are we worried about her now? Because they were unbelievably bullish. Unbelievably. But I don't really I think Charlie Appleby's a great guy. Really like him. I'm really tired of this. Oh, Charlie's not bullish. Charlie's never bullish. He was unusually bullish. Charlie's always bullish. Every bloody time he's talking about a horse, it's like, yeah. Great chance. He basically said William Buick would just go whenever he wanted and win. And that ain't what happened.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I think that's the track. For me, that's the track. And I think having won the 1,000 Guineas, it was worth rolling the dice in the Oaks. In hindsight, if they'd known that, they'd have gone to the Prix de Diane or they'd have waited for Royal Ascot. But all they got to do now is just drop her back to a mile and she'll be fine. I think she is an absolutely amazing filly who just didn't handle Epsom. And for that reason, you just say, okay, didn't handle Epsom, that's fine. Doesn't matter. She's 1,000 Guineas winner. We had a go, and we've still got plenty of options between now and the end of the season. The two horses who finished in front of her are not likely to be capable of dropping back to a mile. I don't even think they could drop back to 10. So therefore, there is a space for her. There's plenty of options. You can build your campaign around running over 8, 9, 10 furlongs. There's plenty of routes they'll go down. Maybe she'll end up in America, but she's an absolutely plenty more. I'm sure by the end of this year, she'll win another Group 1.
Is she not just an absolute solid moral for the Falmouth?
Yeah, potentially, I guess.
Like one of the biggest certainties ever. She loves Newmarket. She'll just crush the opposition there. Whoever lines up against her, good night. Port of Fortune is gone. She's going to miss most of the season. Lake Victoria's out. There's nothing to trouble her.
Well, you assume so. The Falmouth, is that July course, the Falmouth?
I think so.
Race.
I think so.
Yeah, just whether the climb up the hill would really be what they'd want to do. How do they want to play it? I mean, I guess also a lot depends on the Godolphin operation. Are they really that bothered about winning a Group 1 on a Friday afternoon at Newmarket, or do they have other plans for her? Do they want to race her at 4? There's lots of routes that they could go down with their operation, but I think it would be a complete mistake to think on the back of this run, she's got at the game. I actually think she was a clear best in that 1,000 Guineas by distance. And if you hadn't watched the Oaks and you just watched the last 150 yards when she started, you'd think, something must have happened between now and then because she's actually finishing at least as well as the other two. And I think it's just a case that William Buick never looked happy. She looked tentative at the top of the hill. She looked unbalanced. Didn't help the horse outside her, wasn't exactly running in a straight line. I think Desert Flower was kind of sort of stuck with the rail, and I just think she put a whole line through it. Imagine this didn't happen and someone said to you next time, Watch the replay of her winning 1,000 guineas. If she's running over 8 or 9 furlongs, she'll be absolutely all over her.
Pretty Polly, she'd take an awful lot of beating in. Maybe the Irish Oaks at the Curragh. More conventional track would suit her better. Yorkshire Oaks.
Yeah.
Those kind of races would suit her.
She's been beaten once at Epsom, and she was sent off 11-10 for a classic here. I completely forget about it. Same as Adam. I'd nearly take it if you offered me 3-1, 4-1 for her to be the highest rated 3-year-old filly in Britain or Ireland at the end of the season. I'd nearly take it.
Well, it depends on what happens with Lake Victoria. I'm pretty certain Lake Victoria's better, but it depends on what happens with her now. That's going to be in the balance.
I think that could easily be last time she gets beat this season.
Yeah.
If they go Falmouth, Nassau, Yorkshire Oaks, that's what I'd do with her.
When it comes to the big end of season awards nights, like the Cartier Awards and all that sort of thing, to have a chance of beating Lake Victoria, if she takes in all the targets she's expected to and goes unbeaten, Desert Flower will have to go to America, I think, to win, to gain those sort of awards.
Yeah, I
think she probably will.
I'm not entirely certain as we're recording how bad the Lake Victoria injury is. I know it just takes her out of Royal Ascot. I don't know if it takes her out for the... It's not taking her out for the entire season. It's just taking her out for Royal Ascot, I believe. Let me just check. She'll have an easy few weeks in return for a late summer-autumn campaign. So Desert Flower can make up an awful lot of ground between now and then.
Yeah.
I would imagine, I think the easiest thing you do is go back to the Falmouth, you win that. Porta Fortuna did it last year. I don't see why you wouldn't do that with her. And she just won the coronation at Royal Ascot. It's too quick to turn around to the Royal meeting. She'd have been a good thing for that. Oh, man, what a clash that would have been. Desert Flower against Zaragana. Oh, that would have been a cracker. Anyway, it was worth a go. I'm not entirely... I know I said this, she didn't stay. I'm actually not so sure that she didn't stay. I watched it back as you were talking. She's under pressure rounding the final bend, and it looks like Epsom didn't suit her at all. So maybe you go for another classic. Maybe you go for the Irish Oaks. Can't wait to see her in action again. Love to see her against Lake Victoria at some point. Let's see how it pans out. We did tell you, be very, very careful with the golden pony, particularly at Epsom, because Ryan Moore is going to be gone on Jan Brueghel, and he's going to want to come there with his fast and late, oh, look at me, I'm coming so flashy. I don't think it's the ride that got Calandagan beat, but the ride certainly helped Jan Brueghel. He's gutsy, he's classy, he's determined. It's Ryan Moore and Aidan O'Brien winning yet another Group 1 at Epsom. This was the one that kicked off their treble. Adam Mills, Jan Brueghel, back in the winner's enclosure. He had an awful head carriage in his comeback, but that was on fast ground over 10 furlongs, back up in trip. These Aidan O'Brien horses are all improving for their second start of the season, and Jan Brueghel is a Group 1 winner over a mile 4 as a 4-year-old. The Australian stewards must be very pleased.
Yeah, I'm sure they're relatively pleased, because I'd imagine had he run in that Melbourne Cup with that weight on his back, he'd have won pretty comfortably no matter what happened. But this was all about getting into rhythm in front, getting galloping, set the fractions, make it hard work. The last thing they wanted was to turn it into a sprint with Calandagan. So they got him at it early enough. Calandagan, to his immense credit, has made up a lot of ground on a horse who stays really well, and he just couldn't go by. There's no problem. Calandagan doesn't have an attitude problem. This is nothing to do with finishing second. It's just the fact that the way they decide to ride him is to come late. And if you try and come late to horses that stay really well, you need them to stop in front of you, and they're not going to, which is what happened in Dubai. Down on the Seal didn't stop. Jan Brueghel didn't stop. The less said about Stefan Pasquier's riding the Champion Stakes, the better. But the time before, he had City of Troy in the Juvenile. He's just bumping into good horses. Calandagan has run his race yet again, and through him, this is a monster performance from Jan Brueghel. The two of them are miles clear of the rest. It's a really good race. That winner, there's just the chance that, what if Illinois is not that good? And if he's not that good, Aidan talked a lot about, they've all got a queue behind Los Angeles in terms of he's the daddy now, Kyprios is not here. This lad can't be that far behind. He can't be. One more Group 1 and you'd almost say he's their top dog.
Well, his form ties in with Los Angeles. He beat Illinois in the St. Leger. Illinois was narrowly beaten by Los Angeles in the Great Voltigeur. There can't be much between them. And he was an unbeaten 3-year-old. even thinking back to Wayne's ride in Los Angeles in the Derby last year, he went into the Derby on the back of only one run, and he was given an aggressive ride on the front end, similar to Lambourn. It might just, I'm not saying for a second he would have beaten City of Troy, he wouldn't have, but he should have beaten Ambiente Friendly. It should have been the 1-2 for Aidan O'Brien in that race. And it's nothing to do with Wayne, it's the fact that they couldn't get the second run into him. They just couldn't get that conditioning into him in the way they were able to with Lambourn this year. I think you were making the point off the air, maybe one of the reasons he was even running in the race is because of the fact that the Derby was being run in honour of His Highness the Aga Khan, and they just wanted to participate in that great weekend, and that meant that they ran horses that they're entitled to run, but perhaps it wasn't the ideal races for them.
Yeah, I don't want to just necessarily say that as a certainty, but I think that's a fair point. Certainly fair point about Midak. He was a blatant non-stayer in the Derby to me. No real excuse for that. And I think there was a kind of an emotional feeling, if we want to have runners at this meeting, these fit. And I also think there's part of them now that thinks like, no, we know what Calandagan is. We know he's one of the best middle distance horses in the world, and we're going to keep going until we prove it. Because the danger, the other side of it is they could say, right, we'll wait and we'll go for a soft option, Grand Prix de Saint-Cloud or, the Ghana, whatever they choose to run in France. But then the trouble is, if you win a soft Group 1, then everyone goes, oh, it wasn't really a Group 1, was it? It was a Group 1 in name, but you beat Group 2 horses. So they're now at the position, come on, keep going, we're going to get one. And he will get one. He will get one day where it all falls right, he gets the right ride. Epsom is not the easiest track to win at, and particularly not when you're trying to come from the rear of the track that favoured front runners and you're trying to run down a horse that stays further as a Group 1 winner. It's asking an awful lot of Calandagan, and he's done pretty well to get that close. His picture is over my left shoulder if you're watching him on YouTube, and that picture is not coming down, and we are going to get a Group 1 to go on there, I'm sure of it.
Yeah, I agree. He's just come up short against an unbeaten 3-year-old who was a classic winner over a mile 6, George, whose form ties in with the proper horses. Do you have a picture of Calandagan behind you as well? Is that what you were looking up at, George?
No, it's just having a look to see who's up there. It's a horse winning off 95 at Fontball. and a horse called Storming In, who I think used to win off about 55 on the flat.
So not quite Royal Ascot Derby winner then.
No, we don't have any Group 1s in it. The closest we've got is Larry. There is Larry winning the
Hero
London Gold Cup, which is about 140 performance. We'll take that.
Larry would have given Jan Brueghel a fright now, in fairness. Yeah, Larry would have put it up to him.
Larry from the front. I said that the other day about a certain 6 furlong sprinter I was riding at Gary's. I said, in fairness, from the front, Larry, give this something to think about. But I was trying to make the point that it shouldn't be working with other 6 furlong sprinters. I think was the point I was trying to make.
Don't think the owners of that horse would be too pleased to hear that one, George. Anyway, moving.
He wins plenty of races. He's just not a good workhorse. Okay. And he'll win plenty more again this season. Don't worry. He'll be mentioned on the pod.
Saved, George. Redeemed. And anyway, no one knows who that horse is, so it's all okay. You can tell us afterwards.
If you know anything about me whatsoever, you know exactly who that horse is.
Yeah, I have a feeling. I have a fair idea actually as to who it is. But again, for the benefit of the owners' egos, let's not mention anything. To be fair to Calandagan and Jan Brueghel, look, they've pulled 7.5 lengths clear in terms of Jan Brueghel, but 7 lengths for Calandagan of a Group 1 winner from Hong Kong last year, whose form ties in with the horse we're going to talk about in a couple of minutes. It's a fine performance from both horses. It's just, these are 2 very exciting horses to go to war with. And the way I'd look at it, George, is Calandagan is an absolute stone cold solid moral for the exactas and the trifectas. It's just a matter of whether or not he can actually get his head in front.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's less of he's not going by, as good horses are probably dragging the best out of him. Like, he's performed in his last 4 starts. Like, the only reason people are starting to ask questions of his attitude is he's got 4 seconds by his name and he flashed his tail while attempting to handle Epsom for the first time, which wouldn't be unusual for any horse. On RPRs, he's performed between 122 and 127 on his last 4 starts. If that gap was, say, £15, £20 rather than £5, you start to go, well, he's finishing second to any old rag that's in front of him, which just simply isn't the case here. Like, as Adam went through the horses he was second to, I won't do it again. But I just think it's probably the case of at Group 1 level, it's all very tight. And if you're not quite good enough to win a Group 1, or not quite good enough to win a Group 1 from where he's starting from, then you're probably always going to be that way unless you find a really weak one. Maybe owners thought as well, like with the Coronation Cup, like there's a temptation to say it's a weaker Group 1 because field sizes can be small. But like some of those small field Coronation Cups have provided us with Nicholas Abbey and that. You couldn't say they were good races because they were 4 runners, but they took a lot of winning because of the horses that won them. Like there's always one good horse that stands above the field in horses like in races like this. But yeah, I wouldn't have questions about his attitude. And again, as Adam says, they're probably quite right in sending him to all the biggest dances because you're most likely to get a big field and a good pace that is going to pull the best out of him from where he's starting from, because he enjoys passing horses. He enjoys a good test of stamina. The weaker the race gets, the less of a test of stamina he's going to get. In fact, there's probably an argument there'd be a level he'd get to if he ran in a Group 2 or even a Group 3 or something, that they'd try and make him make the running, which wouldn't suit at all.
Yeah.
And it's just a case he's got to keep turning up, and one day his number will be up. But certainly he's not going to suddenly improve £10 and become a multiple Group 1 winner. His day's going to come, but Project Calandagan, best middle distance horse in Europe, is dead. Like it's not going to happen at this point. But
yeah, he'll win. He will win a Group 1. I don't doubt it.
Yes,
but
yeah.
He's not one of the best. However, maybe Francois Gaffard does have one of the best in his yard, because Goliath was also back this weekend, and he wins his comeback in a Group 3. Christophe Soumillon was on board again. I'd like to remind everybody of his King George win. He beats Blue Stocking, who on her next start gets destroyed by City of Troy, but then proves how good he is by winning the Group 1 Prix Vermeil and Europe's most prestigious middle distance race, the Arc. He beats Rebels Romance, who comes out and wins a Group 1 in Germany, and then wins the Breeders' Cup Turf, becoming the first 6-year-old in history to win the race, and over 50 horses age 6 had tried before him. This season he's won a Group 3 and a Group 2, one in the Middle East, one in Europe. Auguste Rodin, who comes out and finishes second, beaten by Economics in the Irish Champion Stakes, giving him weight, so he was the better horse in the day. And he finishes only 4.5 lengths off Deuce in the Japan Cup. Luxembourg was probably gone at the game, but he wasn't beaten that far in the Irish Champion Stakes, to be fair to him. Dubai Honor goes to Hong Kong, finishes second to Givolotto in a Group 1, and then yet again wins one of those Aussie Group 1s. That was a red-hot form. And Goliath is back in the winner's enclosure. How good was he, Adam?
He's a very, very, very good horse. I'm not sure he had to be a very good horse to win Le Coupe on Sunday afternoon. Brilliant piece of placing by Francois Graffard. Soumillon knows him really well. Lets him get on. Lets him do what he wants to do. Settles into a rhythm. This was slow. I mean, French racing has a reputation of being slowly run, but this was epically slow. And then he sprinted clear under a hands drive. What's he beaten? Well, Grand Stars in second is a nice filly who's absolutely crying out for 12 furlongs, in my opinion. She's a little bit quirky. Gerald Mossay's working his magic with her. Keep an eye on her when she goes to 12 furlongs, but over 10 furlongs, she is what she is, which is a filly that places in Group 3 company. Those in behind are kind of listed performers, with the possible exception of Iracine, who needs soft ground, but Iracine is getting on in years. I mean, he's getting on in years so much that he won this race 4 years ago, which kind of shows you how long Iracine's been around. And whilst he's in form, Goliath anywhere near his Ascot form. I think he probably ran 10, 12 pounds below that at least and still won this comfortably. Or hopefully all roads lead back to Ascot for another go. Is he going to win that race? I'm not sure, but I don't think there are 3 better than him. And he might be one of those nice dirty each way bets because he's quite versatile. He travels really nicely. He picks up, and the form of last year's race is so hot, and he looks to be in very similar form going into it this year.
I agree. It's going to be very, very exciting to see what he can do this. I'm sorry. Apologies. Hello. Yes, David. You're right. I apologize. Profusely. I should have said that. Yeah, no, that's no problem. I'll give him his due mention now, and we'd look forward to having you back in the podcast soon. All right. Thank you, David. Thank you very much. Bye. Goliath also beat Sunway for David Manoussier, who would then go on to finish third in the St. Ledger, beaten by Jan Brueghel, who, of course, has now won a Group 1. So, Yeah, red hot form. Sunway coming back to a race course. Apologies, Devin Minussier. George, any thoughts on Goliath?
No, nothing particular. I say if you wanted proof how slow they went, Goliath fell out the stalls and was still in front in 3 strides. Like he barely came out of the stalls at all. And so he got to the front. Everyone was quite happy for him to make it go as slow as he wanted and kick off the front. Like we've learned he's got 4 legs still. Just a very good bit of placing for a Group 1 winner to be running off levels with Group 3 horses. I think Adam said earlier it's probably verging more towards good to soft than soft. So if you were gonna, that was on the going stick. So if you're looking at this and go, actually he handles all sorts of ground, it's probably still closer to the good ground that he prefers. But yeah, no, I say the horses in behind him are a bit much of a muchness, aren't they? And even if any of them were any good, they wouldn't have had a chance to get into it. They'd have had to have been £20 better than him to have beaten him the way the race was run. But yeah, Project Ascot's still on. You'd probably get sent off plenty short enough for maybe some of the younger improving horses coming through for the King George. They'll be receiving a lot. I quite often like the wait for age angle in that particular race. I think the only older horse I ever backed to win it is Harbinger, which might say more about how many winners I've backed in the race as opposed to how effective that system is. But
does that mean you've only backed 2 winners in 10 years of that race?
I think I backed, was it Adayar? Did he win it? Yeah. Adayar. Yeah,
here's the winners actually. Postponed 4, Highland Reel 4, Enable 3, Poet's Word 5, Enable 5, Enable 6, Adayar 3, Pile Driver 5. Martin Dwyer.
I think I had Pile Driver actually. Yeah.
Martin wasn't on board, but Martin was on TalkSport with me that day and told me exactly what they were going to do. Oh, you beauty. Well done, PJ McDonald. 6-year-old Hookham, 4-year-old Goliath. Don't want to be with the 3-year-olds in the King George.
No, but I like the wait for age.
System working well. Send more money.
It's I think I was there for the postponed one as well. I might have backed him. Maybe I've backed a few more 4-year-olds. I remember, but
yeah, I think you have, mate. Yeah, I think you have. Okay, we'll talk about Godolphin's best horse in a second, but first of all, Maximised is a horse who has a lot of potential. He was a good winner of the Woodcote Stakes at Epsom. It's a race that Pinatubo won back in 2019. I'm not for a second suggesting he's going to be European champion juvenile like he was. But he looked good on his debut at Haydock when he beat an odds-on stable companion. He cost a lot of money at the Breeze Ups, and now we know why, Adam.
Yeah, this is about as impressive as you can get from a juvenile at Epsom. Probably the track is not necessarily that ideal for him, but there's plenty of 2-year-olds who will improve for going elsewhere. And it's kind of a weird race because at the 2 furlong pole, you think, oh, maybe they're getting to him. Maybe he's going to fall in a hole here. And then he just goes again, kicks clear. Really impressive turn of foot. Lots of sort of promising types of running this. I think Buratino won this one year. I remember seeing him do a good time there. So he looks at the moment like he's the top of the 2-year-old tree, but we're pre-Ascot. So it's not, there's a great deal of difference between winning the Wood and winning the Coventry. So we'll see where it all fits in the next few weeks, but they must be excited because not only has he managed to win a race like this, but he's managed to do it and kick at the 2 furlong pole, which is pretty impressive. And horses that do that generally have enough ability to improve later in the season as well.
The horse who won this last year on his previous start had beaten Rashabar. So this is form that can work out quite nicely with a view to Royal Ascot. He's going to go to the Royal meeting. Whether he goes for the Coventry or they drop him back and trip, I'm not entirely sure, George. But that Coventry has suddenly become wide open with the news that Albert Einstein is going to miss Royal Ascot. And that's a real punch in the balls. Because he was a very, very exciting horse. But he looks like a nice prospect, as does the second.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of the second, Havana Hurricane. Just I'd just be inclined to think any horse of Eve Johnson Horton's that goes and wins by 2 lengths over 5 first time out, it's probably a pretty damn good horse. It's her 2-year-olds tend to improve like through their 3rd, 4th, 5th start. Like they're brought along very slowly. And she herself said in an interview that she thought mentally rather than physically he was 2 bits of work short going into Goodwood, and yet handled a downhill 5 furlongs and closed up. He's done everything wrong here. He fell out the stalls. He was off the bridle from the word go. As you'd expect for a 2-year-old. Once things start going wrong, they're far more likely to sort of panic than like suddenly come on the bridle. Like it's very hard to make up ground in a race like that, a downhill 6 furlongs. To make up ground on a 2-year-old on the bridle just isn't going to happen. And consequently, he's been pushed along most of the way. I thought almost looked like the winner, like 2 furlongs to a furlong out. Like really went there with a lot of purpose. And then like the horse that's had probably the smoother run round has kicked away a bit. You're being some people be inclined to think seeing horse be pumped along over 6 furlongs and run on well like that and get into the race that he probably wants further. I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. I think he's just got a lot of ability that got him into the race, and he does just stop a little the last 100 yards from the exertion. If that horse can continue to improve Eve Johnson Horton's handling, I see his horse being a top class prospect by the end of the season, especially perhaps on a more conventional track. I know you're and a winner over 5 at Goodwood, but just perhaps for where he is mentally at the moment, like a more like conventional flat or slightly uphill track might work more to his strengths. But just a horse I've got to have on side, because Charlie Appleby's horses, like, they're obviously that he brings them along, but they're ready to go first time. This horse is going to have plenty left to work on still, and is competing at the highest level already. But I think it's going to be a really nice horse going forward.
I think the fact that Maximise was sent off such a short price favourite, I know most people think that Sheikh Mohammed doesn't go racing in Britain anymore. My Spice saw him going up and down the lines with the bookmakers, with the Lidl and Aldi bags full of cash, getting stuck in, taking every single price going about this fella. 6-5. Jeez, they must think he's good. That betting makes sense to me. The betting for the final leg of the American Triple Crown made no sense to me. Now, maybe if somebody had access to FanDuel TV and they were watching the American pools for the Derby and they saw Delacroix being sent off odds-on stateside, they might have gone, I don't understand how that's possible. And then you look at the American pools for the Belmont Stakes. Sovereignty was much the best against Journalism in the Kentucky Derby. And yeah, Journalism was great and he did us a huge favour in the Preakness with that incredibly brave performance. How is he second in the betting? How is he 5? He was 5-1 the night before the race. It didn't make any sense. Baeza goes off 7-2. Sovereignty is 5-2. Journalism was the 41-20 favourite. And unquestionably, Bill Mott's horse produces the performance that emphatically proves he is North America's best middle distance 3-year-old. And he might be the best middle distance horse in America. How impressed were you with Sovereignty in the Belmont Stakes, Adam?
Yeah, really, really impressed. I can explain the market, because obviously American sports is very heavily data driven. It's part of my job. So naturally, I looked at the data last week and went, Journalism's going to do him. Look at the speed figures. Look how fast Journalism runs. Look how fast Bates ran at the finish in Kentucky Derby. So, part of the reason was that the Mills money was firmly on Journalism, and I got thoroughly put in my place. But this was a very good performance from Sovereignty. The way he won the Kentucky Derby was he ground it out and he really got going and his stamina kicked in. This was about class. This was a classy performance that he hadn't previously shown. Broke really well. Red hot second furlong, 11.11 seconds. Got himself in position. And then he's got the cruising speed to hold Journalism one off the fence as well. And that, I think, is key, because Sovereignty's sitting there. Journalism can't get in. So Rispoli decides, sod this, I'm going to go. I'm not going to sit here and get embroiled in a battle. I'm going to go. He kicks. What Journalism has is a better turn of foot, but he just can't sustain it. He can do it for 1 furlong. Sovereignty just sat with him, didn't lose any ground, and then kicks clear. My God, this horse is good. And it was my mistake when I analysed the Kentucky Derby. I thought he's grounded out and he's a stayer. He is a stayer, but he's also got this cruising speed that he's now showing. Best 3-year-old in the world, Emmett? Would that be too much of a stretch to say that at the moment?
I think so.
You think so? Think it's too much of a stretch? Not sure. Don't know what Japanese he got, but he's very, very good, and Journalism won't be reversing this form. Baeza was the disappointment, because he looked like he was unlucky. No such excuses here. He was just in and out, influent, time speeds went up and down. He's got a shorter average stride than Journalism and a lower average stride frequency than Sovereignty. He won't be reversing it either. I mean, they're talking about the Travers Stakes. Sovereignty will not be 5-1 for the Travers Stakes at any point. And he just looks in a different league to the rest of these.
Well, Sierra Leone came back with a very, very underwhelming performance. Too bad to be true. When he gets a fast pace, you saw what he was able to do in the Breeders' Cup Classic. I don't see how he gives weight in the beating to Sovereignty, though. And fair enough, we're at the 3-year-old division now. We have to see how these horses progress. But everything he's doing, the Beyer figures. Andy Beyer, by the way, was with you. He was all over Journalism. He wouldn't hear a defeat for him. And that was a special performance in the Preakness. And maybe, I know the Fox Sports team were really trying to build up this rivalry and say, oh, Journalism might be able to do him later in the season. Perhaps he can. And maybe he was a little bit softened up by the fact that he's the only horse to have competed in all 3 Triple Crown races. For those of you who are listening, Adam's shaking his head. Yeah, Sovereignty... Yeah. Sovereignty was given the campaign he was given because this is what Belmont thinks is best for the horse. And I understand, I know that Howard, great friend of the show, the Triple H Racing Podcast, is very, very frustrated that Sovereignty did not take up the Triple Crown engagement. I think Belmont's been very clear about this for quite a while now. He needs a break to be at his best. And if they'd gone for the Preakness 2 weeks after the Kentucky Derby, he wasn't convinced that he would have won it. He wasn't convinced it was the best thing for the horse. And they have long-term aspirations with this fella. This is about getting him to the Belmont, then getting him to the Travers, getting him to the Breeders' Cup Classic, getting him to the Saudi Cup, getting him to the Dubai World Cup. These are the main targets for Sovereignty. That just didn't fit with that 2-week turnaround in the Preakness. For Journalism, he's running all 3. That, on one hand, proves you can do it. You can go for the Triple Crown. He's brave. Maybe he'd been softened up. I think the best horse is Sovereignty. I think he beats him on a sloppy track. He beats him on a standard track. He'll beat him on a fast track. He'll beat him wherever you want, whenever you want, and he'll beat you again. And if this race had been run at actual Belmont, which it won't be for another year, it'll be 2027 before we're back at the actual Belmont track, where then it's returned to a mile 4. If it was over the real distance of a mile 4, Sovereignty would have crushed him by further. He's just the best horse.
Yeah. It's worth mentioning, just because Sovereignty benefited from running in the first and third leg of a trip doesn't mean that Journalism was disadvantaged by running in all 3. That might suit that horse perfectly well to do that. It doesn't necessarily mean he ran below because he's running all 3. They've gone hard. They've gone very hard. Like Adam said there, I think I was listening to it earlier and they called out the first quarter was 23 something. Like, it's incredibly quick, especially if you're used to European sort of sectional timings. But the horse, where is it? The leader has been beaten 8 1/4 lengths, and the 2 horses that sort of hassled him early have finished last and second last. Baiza might be a horse to take out of it going forward if he can find somewhere where he doesn't bump into these 2. So he did plenty wrong, especially by American standards. Again, he's not come out the gate particularly quickly. He's run keen, made up a lot of ground very quickly. It still looked like he had half a chance, like turning in. Sort of horse that might pop up in a lesser race if he can find somewhere these 2 don't want to go, so he can stop banging heads with them. But I'm very much in agreement with Emmet there. Sovereignty just wins further. Like, to have the confidence to give Journalism first run. So I was sort of watching it going, Journalism's made a big move around the outside there, which I know is a very American thing to do. I thought if Sovereignty sort of sits in here and gets a run up the middle, he'll benefit massively from that. But no, he followed him round, went round the houses, perfectly happy to go. I'll go everywhere you go. I don't need an advantage. I'll let you have first run, and I'll come pick you up when I want. And that's what he did.
You should have seen me, George. I was screaming my head off at Junior Alvarado. What are you doing, man? What are you doing? You're letting him get first run on you. No. Never a moment's worry, really. But when you're watching the race live, you think, oh, jeez, Journalism is going to steal this. The best horse is going to be... No, he knew he'd get him. He knew he would.
Well, you're thinking when he lets him have first run, he's sacrificing first run to get a better run up the inside. He's sacrificing first run to gain ground. And he doesn't. He's just like, no, you can have first run. I'll come get you when I want.
And he does ground save on the inside and then switch out wide, which was a tactic he used on Sunday night as well, Junior. But he knows he's on the best horse. He knows he is.
Yeah.
Should he have run in the Preakness? Should he be a Triple Crown winner, Adam?
No. It's easy to forget. The Americans do it a weird way. I say a weird way, do it their way, but they go, Kentucky Derby, then down in trip to Pimlico for the Preakness, and then back up in trip normally for the Belmont. The running in the Preakness would not have suited him.
Yeah.
I think journalism might have done him in the Preakness because they go down in trip. And the way that Preakness worked out, I know it's a bit of an unusual finish, but it would have been quite tactical. And I'm not sure that's what Sovereignty wants. What he wants is just a gallop, and that's what he can do. You know, that maybe now in hindsight, they look and think, well, we battered a Preakness winner. So maybe we could have gone for it. But then who knows how it would have played out. It's very difficult to be that certain. At the end of the day, he's won 2 legs of the Triple Crown. He'll probably win the Travers. He's got to have a right chance to win the Breeders' Cup Classic, and then he'll be maybe on his travels or maybe off to do something far more exciting than horse racing. But whatever he's going to do, he's proven now that the Kentucky Derby wasn't a fluke. He was the best horse. And it's not like journalism's gone down a nose. He's absolutely journalism. Final 50 yards. If you look at the pace chart, which I'll put on ATR later, you know, Sovereignty's still going at the finish, whereas journalism is going crashing down. He's got nothing left. The one chance they've got with journalism is to change tactics, because on the speed clock, journalism still had the highest top speed, 42.03 miles an hour. Journalism can't sustain it. He can run that speed for about a furlong and a bit, no more than that. So if they changed tactics and decided, right, we're going to gamble it all and we're going to drop in and we're going to come as late as possible at Sovereignty, maybe they get closer. But I suspect what's more likely is that if they tried to track Sovereignty and gave him a head start, he'd win by even further, because journalism just wouldn't be able to get on terms with him. You know, personally, if I was looking at it with journalism, I'd be thinking, can we go back to a mile? Do we need to keep butting heads with this thing? Because we're not going to beat Sovereignty. But actually, journalism in his own right has finished second in the Kentucky Derby, won a Preakness, and finished second in the Belmont Stakes to probably the best American 3-year-old of the last 5 years. So therefore, journalism has put between himself and Baitza that he did in the Kentucky Derby. You know, everything suggests journalism is a world-class horse. He's just not in Sovereignty's league. And maybe journalism would benefit by going down in trip slightly and running in a strongly run mile rather than up at this distance.
Haskell for journalism?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. The American program wouldn't be my strong point for race planning, but there's loads of races they can go for. I mean, Sovereignty, surely, if they really fancy the money for the Saudi Cup, then that straight in Riyadh looks absolutely tailor-made for him.
Well, it's not just going to be the money, it's the prestige of winning that, and Godolphin
Yeah.
I think that's going to matter to them.
But then you have to bear in mind, if you're going to go to the Middle East, that you're going to bump heads with the Japanese. And as we've seen with Forever Young, and as we've seen with the racing in Dubai, the Japanese take their middle distance racing very seriously. So you've always got to think this through. But in American terms, Sovereignty has everything you want, which is the early speed gets in position, the cruising speed holds the position, and then at the finish he lengthens. And he's not really even got to the bottom of him yet, because actually I think a mile 4 would be even better. And I think had the Belmont Stakes been at Belmont Park, he'd have won it by 10 lengths.
He'd have crushed them.
So, you know, this horse is seriously good. Seriously good.
I mean, it feels good to be on the right side of this too, because we've been talking about Sovereignty for a while. And
well, you speak for yourself. If you listen to my appearance on the Nick Luck show last week, I was like, journalism's going to do him. Look at the pace.
Oh, no!
Look at this plotter. He's got no chance. The sooner we delete that episode, the better.
Okay.
You know, you can get things wrong, and you can look at one race and think, oh, it's played out a certain way, but actually Sovereignty was just playing with him in the Kentucky Derby, and he's completely buried him here. This is not a piece of form that I want to take on. No.
And I think it's elite form. I think both of them will win Group 1s. Yeah, Baeza is almost certainly a Group 1 class horse as well. At some point, Grade 1, I should say. I would think Haskell for journalism, back down to a mile 1. That's a fair way away. That's August, I think. So we need to think a little bit more about that. Sovereignty, whatever prep you give him for the Travers, he'll win that. Hopefully against Sierra Leone. And then you're on to the Classic, which brings me to 4-1 for the Classic? Is this not just, okay, whatever anti-post fancy you have, stick Sovereignty in there with them?
Are you sure? Look at the price. Sierra Leone's a big old price at 10s, only surely.
Well, he is a big price if he's back. But he's had an injury. He's come back with a really awful comeback. Too bad to be true.
Forever Young is also quite a big price.
The only horse that would I wouldn't be worried about Forever Young. I'd be far more worried about Sierra Leone if he's back.
Maybe. We should also give credit to Jamie Osborne for Heart of Honour's performances. Now, look, Heart of Honour is not big enough to take on the American horses. His stride is just not long enough. He just can't live with the size of them. And he runs his heart out. He keeps going. You know, he's finished 5th and 6th in these races. He's done a great deal of work. He is one to remember for next season. I'd assume they'll go back to Dubai. Not necessarily saying he's a World Cup winner or anything of that nature, but there are loads of those group races on the dirt in Dubai. And he is more than suited to that track. The longer straight suits him because he stays really well. Fair play to Jamie Osborne for having a go. And I'm sure the prize money, even for the 5th and 6th place finishes, is pretty decent.
30 grand.
But he is a horse to remember that there are races in Dubai next winter that will have his name on them because there are plenty of options before the World Cup night.
Yeah, he pocketed 32 grand sterling for finishing 6th the other night. And when he finished 5th at journalism, he's walked away with £48,000. He ain't getting that in Britain for finishing 5th. So fair play. I think that 4-1 for the Classic is huge. I felt quite good because I did say on Sky Sports Racing on Friday, by the way, this Sovereignty, if we're getting 7-4, that's a gift. 5-2? Thank you, Sovereignty. If only I'd permed up my patent, or my Lucky 15, I should say, properly. Minnie Hauk, Brueghel, Sovereignty. Didn't have Lambourn. Oh well. The boys did. So well done to Adam. Well done to George. We will be back with you for Royal Ascot coverage. We have a number of specials planned for you. I'm pretty certain the first of them is going to be on Thursday, or at least released on Thursday. It might come before that. So if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button to our YouTube channel so you never miss a video. Subscribe to us on whichever podcast audio app it is you're listening to us on. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Podbean, Podcast Republic, CastBox, all those great apps. You can hear the content there from Adam Mills, George Gorman, and me, Emmet Kennedy. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Your support means an awful lot to us. Comment below if you were with us for the big wins over the weekend. Comment below if you think Sovereignty is going to win the Breeders' Cup Classic. I think he will. I think 4-1's an absolute steal. From Adam, George, and me, Emmet, we'll talk to you again very, very soon on the Final Furlong Podcast. Look after yourself and each other. God bless.
In horse racing, every furlong matters and every episode counts. So stay ahead of the field by hitting subscribe to the Final Furlong Podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms. It's free and it gets you one step closer to the winner's enclosure. Subscribe to the Final Furlong Podcast and join us on the gravy train.